Hi everyone, welcome to Stephanie Kitchen's Hightower Stitching, video 268. And what this one is called the Progress Made. And I've run into two projects and it really serves itself to do these together. The first one is to look at the 267, the 12-inch leaf blocks. I'm going to show you that progress that I've made. And then I want to show you a new project. And that's going to be 268. And it is really neat because it's like window panes put together. So stay tuned. Here is the picture of the quilt from the magazine for 267. And it's really pretty, and those are 12-inch squares. And this is as far as I've gotten. Yesterday I finished stitching in the last block, and you can see I still have to put my binding on the outside edge. But I had a good time putting medium and dark colors together, just two colors. And these were all, scraps. They, the pieces I've had in the fabric. I didn't buy any. I just put together what I had. And then I quilted it with my free motion quilting. And when I started thinking, what am I going to do? And I've got to do 25 blocks. And I looked at it and I just thought, I think I'm just going to do whatever. And as I started with that, since everything was kind of big, I pulled out some templates that my husband had made a long time ago and used those and the ruler foot to get the shapes. And these were the three main ones that I used. And if you remember when you use, and these were Luan board, and but it had to be thick enough so that the ruler attachment tool wouldn't slide up over them. So some of these are actually a really nice plyboard. And then we sanded those down. And what happens is that when the ruler foot goes around there, it actually makes it even bigger than the way it appears now. But when that's divided and you have the sections, then you go in and you decorate the sections, and then you decorate around the outside of them. And the next thing you know, you have completed a block. And usually I would run into the next block, and it's hard to see the stitching on here. It is a tan color. And then I just let it run over into the sashing because it was only about 1 inch sashing now when it was finished. And then as you see when you back away, then all of that disappears. So it's like finding a surprise. But I just wanted to let you know how that was going, and I'm going to be putting the binding on it. And so now we're back to the second part. That was a nice little 3 minutes. This is the beginning of a new project, and I feel like I just died and went to heaven. These two projects fit together and were so pleasing. It wasn't a lot of stress and everything. So these are the basic blocks that you make. And this quilt has 5 times 7. It's got 35 of them. And it ends up being a rectangular quilt. And I thought, well, I'll just change it into a square. But, when I go look back at it, I really like the rectangular look. And I show you the block because when you see the picture in the magazine, it's really neat. And you really got to do some thinking. So just back all the way back out of that picture, which came from the Quiltmaker of May, June 2022. Oh, well, here's a bigger snapshot. And don't let that intimidate you. I'm going to tell you, because you just do it a piece at a time, and it's so big, and it's really fun. So let's get started. It's going to take 4.5-inch squares to begin. And I thought, well, how do I want to do that? Because this is so colorful. Do I want it in one color way or what? And so what I finally decided was I was just going to start with a Scrappy again. And one of the things was I looked back, I had a partial collection of the 5-inch charms. And that was really nice because I would actually find a dark and a medium, and that could be the beginning of it. And so once I did that, then I was ready to start building the rest of it out of my fat quarters and pieces that I keep on my short shelf that's got the smaller than a fat quarter. So when I first started, I made columns of colors together. Like I went through my greens on the shelf and in the charms and picked out everything that was green and that was dark and a medium. And then I would put those in a row, and then I did a column for golds, because really I ended up with about 6 columns of colors. And these were all cut down to 4.5-inch squares if you're using these. Otherwise, the others would be cut. And so if you can imagine, on my table, I had rows going across down the table. And that helped me to keep them sort of the same length so that I didn't get so many more blues or so many more reds, and keeping with all of the colors. And one of the things is, and the reason I say yellows or reds, that when we look at it or look back at the picture, you see how yellow and red are really dominant colors. So you want to be careful what you do with those and where you put them. So what you need to start is you're going to have 140 4.5-inch squares. And then you're going to have 280 2-inch squares. And the whole thing is, if you get all your squares cut out, or most of them, then you're ready to start. And you've got the little 2-inch squares, and the 2-inch squares are going to go on these 2 corners of every one of your pieces, top right or in the bottom left. And you're going to do one of the stitch, cut, and then fold it up. And the nice thing about a 2-inch block is that it's so small. Most of the time you can start and then stitch down without even drawing the line. But if you're more comfortable at the beginning, you can draw your line in your color. And these I used mixed colors. So I found everything that I saw. I tried to stay away from white and really dark colors also for those corners. So you're going to have a stack when you get finished of your 140 squares. All right, and that's just the beginning. That's just fun. And I'm going to take you into my progress room. And once I had my 140 colors or blocks, and I kept them separated by color when I started, and I came in and I knew I needed 4 in each block, so I just started putting them out. I went across with 1 in row 1. I did 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I got 5 different colors. Then I start back through that row and I put the next colors in there, going through that same 1 row right there. And then as I went, I built my next rows going across and my next. And you can see, if you look, you can see the yellow can be pretty strong and the reds can be strong. And once I got that, and I had all 7 of them done, I've got all 7 rows, then I was ready to start sewing. And you remember that block I showed you is that bottom left-hand corner. It's got the 4 pieces, and then it's got 4 joiners, and I'm going to tell you about that. But one other thing is that when I got ready to sew them and I was going to move them, I went ahead and got my batting board, and this would be one square, and this is the next square and the next square, and I could put the whole row on there. Then I was ready to start. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to make strips. Now this is what's interesting, that when you get ready to put it together, you get several choices of how you want it to look. For example, the way she did this one, she picked up the bright colors and then she picked up the navy, and this is going to make her frames for her looks like windows. And I went and got, you need about 1 1/8 yards to be able to do both the inside frame and then the outside frame. And what I did was anything that was that material that I thought might work, I went and got it and I laid it down. I opened it up a little bit and I laid it down on the material. And I just wasn't hitting on it. I just wasn't going. So I just kept on, took a break, came back, tried again. And when I laid this green on it, I really liked it because I said, I don't want to go with black or something like that, because you're also going to have setting stones in there. And so as I was looking at some things, the little cornerstones, I found a piece of material that had these little green leaves in it and went with this, so that when you look at the block, you'll see that I have connected that block to some strips, and the strips are 4.5 inches long and 1.5 inches wide, and your cornerstones are 1.5 inch squares. It's very neat, very easy to handle. And here you can see the first block on the next row that I'm going to do. And the first thing that you do is you take a 4.5 inch by 1.5 inch, and you're going to sew these 2 pieces together, and you're going to sew these 2 pieces together. All right, and then you stop, because here's where your cornerstones, setting stones, joiners are going to be. And that little cute one that I had, that little 1.5 inch, is going to go in there. And it's going to have these 2 attached to it, so that it looks like this. Okay, now I pressed, excuse me, when I was doing this part, I pressed the seams into the center on both parts. So when I did this part, I pressed the seams going out, so they will sort of lock when you're doing it. And if your seams are about the same, you know, whatever your 1/4 inch is that your machine will let you do, and you do that on both parts, then it really will lock together in there when you get ready to sew on one side and then tip down and sew the other side on. And then those seams, I think well, just look at it the way it went, and you can either go in or it can go out. It's not going to matter. Then I turned it over, and then I did a nice press job on the outside, so they all laid very nicely. That's what I call the inside frame. So when you see things like this chart, doing the inside frame, you're going to do that to all of them first, and get all of those little windows set up like you saw in the other room, that bottom section. Now, I liked doing this because I had a lot of control over those little stones that go in the center But the other way that you can do it, if you like doing bands, you can take and make your colors so they're set up that you've got 4.5-inch piece on the top, and it said it would take 2 width of your fabric going across the 42-inch. And then you had another 4.5 width right here. And then you take whatever your piece of fabric is. Mine's already cut up into little pieces that are going to make your little window block in there. Those are 1.5 inches. And that's sewed in there and pressed it. And there again, you'd press it into the center. And then you cut into 1.5-inch strips going down through your block right there. And I did that on the other things that were bigger, and that was fine. But I just liked working with these small pieces, so I just did each one of mine that goes across individually, because I could really control more what was going on there. Okay, so now you got an inside frame, which is 1.5 inches by 4.5 inches, look like a strip. And you're going to need 70 of those because there's 35 windows, and then you need 2 on each side. Now, if you decide that you're going to do the pieces that are the bands, then you'll have your 2 bands and you'll cut those up. But otherwise, you'll just go ahead and cut more of the small ones, because you'll need those to hook into your cornerstones, which are right here. And there's only 35 little windows, so you'd need 35 of these. Then the next part that we're going to look at, and I'm not ready to do it yet, because I'm going to get all of my little windows fixed first. But then you're going to do an outside. But this one's just going to have 4 sides to it. We're not going to, that's going to be the outline of the frame. And when you look at the 35 blocks that you have finished, you're going to be looking for another color that will go around the outside and will have cornerstones. But now they're going to be on the edge, so you'll have just one long piece and then the 2 stones, and that's going to be on each side. And what that looks like is, if you look at this, the navy was her first part that she put in. Then the next part she put on was this yellow one right here. So you say, where's my yellow one? Well, I'm going to wait till I get my blocks done. And I've got enough that I could start looking at it now. But I was having a good time doing that part. And what I'll do is I'll do the same thing I did at the beginning. I'll take and pick a couple of colors, and I'll go in there and lay them down on top and see if it gives me the look that I want. And here she had a dark look and a lighter look, the dark navy and then the lighter orange color. And I'm going to see, I think I'm probably might go with a dark on the outside, because my green seems to be light if you look at this. And it looks like the contrast might be a darker color. Whether it's a gray or something, I won't know until I lay the pieces down. So I think we've about covered everything. And I'm not going to do any sewing today, because it's very simple just to go down and sew that one and sew that one. That's the top part. And then sew this one together and press them nice, and then come back and add your strip through the center. So I'm doing a lot of this, and then I add that in. Just depends. You get into different things of machine chain stitching, where I would go across and do maybe the top, and then I'd do the bottom ones, and then I'd start putting together. And sometimes I just like to see the block together, so I just do one block at a time, and it goes pretty quickly. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you liked seeing how the leaf quilt looks. When I think of things, well, lots of times when I look at the quilts, I'll say, oh, I wonder if I'm ever going to do that again. Well, I'm already ready to do the leaf quilt. Even though it's big, I might make it smaller, but it makes a great 12-inch block, and they're so pretty to put together. And I'm having fun with this quilt, the second one, the windows, because I get to use all these different colored fabrics and put them together. It just takes a little thinking to collect a bunch of them and then lay them out and decide what you want to join them with, like this one with the green and that block in between there. And just take your patience and have a good time. Thank you for watching. If I have any notes, I'll put them in the description. If you found this helpful or fun, or you think you're going to try this project, please subscribe and hit like. Thank you for watching. And just a little add-on, that when you start laying your blocks out, they don't have to stay the way you're putting them out. I found that I was turning some of mine, and I had sometimes I had too many yellows next to each other, or too many reds, and I separated. The other thing I did was I took a picture with the camera, and that would do two things for me. One, tell me which color was too heavy in an area, and then also when I got it like I wanted it to take a picture, because sometimes between me and getting into the sewing room, I could misplace pieces or something. But even when you get them laid out, I've actually been turning some of them now as I've gotten to this place. So you just keep working it as you go.